I'm back on the land. This is the first time in 8 weeks or so that I didn't bike back. Rigodas gave me a ride home last Monday, and this is Thursday, so I took the bus. It didn't come, so I went to Širvintos, and some friends dropped me off from there. And now that I'm back, I'm seeing this plant is doing really well. The other ones, not so much. I'm thinking I need to trim them. The same with this Aronija. It's not looking as happy as that one Gooseberry. So I'm going to cut off some of the branches so that it can focus more on the roots. I should have done this before I dug it out, but better now, I think, than never. There, I trimmed off some branches, especially some of the weaker ones that don't. This year I'm back to the pine tree forming project. Ow. So when I do this, they get all snowbally. Give you an example. This is the tree that I formed like that last year. I reformed it again this year, but as you can tell, less of the needles are on the third year, and the 2 years are more stacked with each other. So every year it'll grow more and more bulby. And here is what it looks like in the second year. You can see it's stouter than this guy who was not formed last year. Update on the greenhouse. There's still not too many things here. There's some basil popping out here and here, but the peas are exploding. Every single one sprouted from this one tray, and most of them everywhere else. Otherwise, more peas here. Everything is just bigger. These are almost ready to plant outside. These are peas from Spain. Here's an update on this garden after about 2 weeks of being under the cloche. The carrots are huge. Here's one big stalk, and it looks like some of the beets survived. This guy. And there's all these carrots from last year. Last year they had a hard time of coming out. It took over a month or so for them to get started. And here it's maybe just Akajiso. And the onions I planted here are doing well too, compared to the same ones I planted here outdoors. Update on the outdoor beets. They don't really seem to be getting off. There might be one here and there, but compared to these white radishes, they're not liking something here. The task I'm doing here is there's a bunch of apple trees that sprouted, like these two here. I want to transplant them into the greenhouse so they can grow bigger and then to a height that I can graft them next year or the year after. So I've got some plants here that fill out, and about 7 plants or so I'm going to plant on this side because that side is too packed. And it's time I take out these big guys. They don't really produce anything that's very tasty. They take a lot of space. Same with you. So the root system on this plant looks like this. It's very shallow. Nothing good on it. Whereas here I have a radish that is bolting. Actually, I could have planted it last year. Yeah, I'm going to let it go to seed. So I just planted 8 of these apple trees. Now I gotta water them, and they're done. So on this side, it's going wild. The clovers are starting to go to flower. So now, actually before it goes to flower is the best time to chop it up so that it releases the nitrogen into the ground. And I think I just want to thin a lot of these out and see if I can revive some of them from tiny plants and just fuck with them and see what happens. Otherwise, these are pretty tasty, the tips. So I'm going to gather them off half of these plants before I chop them down. So I'm going to transplant these peas out to across from this guy. instead of planting them up there, I realized that the shade would block out many other things that will grow out here. So I'm planting them towards the back of the garden, in between the garlic, the clover, and the suede, because these I think will be done way before the peas and the suede. Also transplanted 6 sweet mammoth peas out here as well. The zucchini grew very well last year, and I imagine without much effort these should also. One good thing about this greenhouse is I can just open the windows, and today is a very windy day, so they can start getting acclimated to the wind before they're planted outside. Friends who dropped me off yesterday, they sell hemp seeds and everything related with hemp, so they gifted me some seeds and some oil. I just discovered this amazing recipe with shredded apples, seeds, a little bit of salt, and the oil, like 2 tablespoons on top and mixed in, and it's like a dessert. Late, this is my go-to meal. Cooked onions, nettle, chervil, salt, and bread. April 15th, here I planted 15 of these chives. Here I have 4 Orach, and this 9 squadron is all Claytonia, and these 2 are Cardoons. This whole tray is full of winter savory, except for this row, which is Pennyroyal. I ran away with Rigo dust for yesterday to volunteer at a place that I volunteered 2 years ago on a hemp farm. And it was kind of an action to help me get over this burned out feeling, because I realized that I wanted to be anywhere other than here and other than my apartment in Vilnius. So it seems like a lot of people are going through this collective fatigue from this quarantine and this complete demotivation. I thought I was pretty immune to it, being here and not in the city, like being able to work on my lands, whereas a lot of people are stuck in the city. I thought I'd get away pretty unscathed, but no, last week especially, the food was starting to taste like cardboard, and I was not motivated at all to come back to this. But I feel a bit better. I ate some different food, that helps. I got some new ideas, some inspiration, and I'm still not back at full speed ahead, but today I returned and I moved the hoop over to that side so the seeds can get started, and I did some weeding, and I covered some things, whatever I'm not growing, with mulch. So there's nothing planted here. I mulched these onions, but look how big this carrot is getting. I'm wondering what would happen if I collected some seeds, but I left the other seeds to just fall and just see where they would grow. Otherwise, I transplanted 3 calendula. That's 1 calendula there. There's another one there, and the 3rd one is there. Update on the greenhouse. The biggest changes are how fast these beans are growing. Some of them I notice either lose their leaves, or I don't know if some sort of fungi or what, but even the Rigo dusted beans are doing well here. And yeah, this celery, I might need to harvest at least part of it. It's growing above the table now because it wants the sun so bad. It's going to be huge. Planting is this Perilla frutescens, or Akajiso. It needs 10% sand. So these 6 are with sand from the forest garden, not from the topsoil, but from the soil mineral layer. And the next batch I'm going to make is with the same soil, but from the topsoil. So it should have more biology. I want to see what the difference will be. It's another unpredictable weather day. It's supposed to be like this all week. So today, before I return to Vilnius, probably tomorrow, I want to make progress on a cold frame. And I was playing around with many different ideas, and I'm deciding on doing the simplest thing possible, which is dig a hole in the ground. I'm going to dig this out a bit too, so that the sun can reach more into it, and cover it with these shower glasses. So here I already dug underneath and I loosened the ground, and everything I dug out in layers. I returned some of the ground out of this compost. Now I'm going to return this topsoil on top here and then dig out the front part and start playing around with the glass. So here, I basically dug this part out and I returned back the topsoil. These are all the rocks that I dug out. And here's where I tossed all of the sod. It's a side quick project as to distract myself while I'm still thinking of how to do the cold frame. I weeded this area earlier. This is where I have some domesticated blackberries growing and my 2 blueberries. And I was looking through my collection of perennials and I found my sorrel. Sorrel is a thing I realized it grows everywhere here. So much so that it's a weed, which is kind of silly that I purchased it as something to grow. However, I'm starting to rethink sorrel. Sorrel has really good really deep roots, and it can make a root barrier. So here, for example, the soil is very acidic. Sorrel seems to thrive in acidic soil. I'm wanting to see if I can start a little guild in this area. So I have this compost which has some inorganic fertilizer and crap, so I scattered it because I didn't want to use it for the seedlings. However, I want to see if I can control some of the environment here by controlling what species grow. Because right now I'm noticing these hawthorns. They're not hawthorns. I'm slipping on the name. Anyways, they're weeds, and many of them are going to flower as these. And it's impossible to de-weed all of them, but I would like to make some islands of different areas around the land where I'm starting to build a mini ecosystem. So might as well start from some of the weeds. So before I plant over, I'm going to water basically everywhere. I want to plant the sorrel to make it easier to stick the seeds in the ground, because loose soil is not ideal for sowing. Next, I'm going ahead and making lots of holes. I changed my mind. I plan that I'm going to make a border instead of planting up in the center here, because I don't want to stop it from the roots of either of these fruit bushes from expanding further. I just want to make a barrier between the outside weeds and what's growing in this guild. I'm planting sorrel all around here, the French sorrel variety here. And in very terrible soil, I'm trying the same thing along the edge here with this red vein variety. No expectations. At this project, I finally got these 2 level, and I'm gonna do that for the rest of the sides so that I can connect all 4 corners of this into that. I've made some considerable progress on the mini greenhouse project. I installed weed barriers for all of the sides except for the front. I'm still thinking I'm going to dig this out at a slant, and I'm thinking I could lay it with stones as a weed block so that it can collect sun during the daytime, though I don't know if it would be too hot. And for the sides, I'm thinking I'll eventually maybe use the polypropylene or polyethylene, whatever plastic I have left over from the greenhouse. This is progress I am happy with. I might even be able to use that big one in the front here. Ooh, this could be one big cold frame. Finally, these very nice pieces of metal arrived. This thing is so heavy. I can start chopping roof shingles now. I woke up again this morning, raining. Sun's out a little bit. Looks like there's gonna be more rain again. It's been this sort of weather over a week already. And I'm probably gonna go back to Vilnius tomorrow since it's unfavorable winds today. And made myself some breakfast, some bread mix, and I'm probably gonna go work on the cold frame today. Here's today's pride and joy. I cleaned the glass, I scrubbed it as well as I could, and I made this contraption to hold it open. It stretches and harder to do with one hand. Holds there. And I aligned a little walkway with rocks, which will serve a double purpose to store heat from the sun. And almost done. One more day's worth of work to do the sides, put some polypropylene or some plastic leftovers from the greenhouse on the side, and prepare the garden bed. Here I made it so these easily come off. I just have these screws here so the wind doesn't blow it away. And I also found this to hold this back glass in. Otherwise, I keep finding new apple trees. Here's an apple tree. Here's another apple tree. Right in front of my greenhouse. Mixed 1 part sand with 1 part clay with 1 part compost and too much water. And I filled these growing jars almost halfway. And I'm going to add some more material to get this drier because I want to plant things like Echinacea, which don't seem to sprout for me. So I made this mixture a little, I think it's too poorly drained to be exact. It's heavy under the clay, I think too heavy. And Echinacea needs better drainage. However, I'll try one of them. And here I'm mixing a batch that is more well drained. It's more sand heavy. And a little bit of perlite. This is my third try trying to grow Echinacea. I've got some very heavy and partially wet soil, some heavy clay, and some of the same thing except mixed half and half with the compost mixture. In the backyard by the garden, I just planted some Humulus lupulus and some watercress where the water fills up. Here I planted rosemary. These are all 8 rosemary. These two, first row is rosemary from Catalan, and the second one is ordered from Ireland. This too is with sand, very heavy sand compost, and this is with half sand. Here's 1 corn. I've got here's 2 watermelon, 8 New Zealand corn. Here's also 2 rosemary, 1 from Catalan, 1 from Ireland. 1 corn, 1 melon, 3 lettuce. So these 2 are also rosemary, and that's it. Since this driveway is not usable as is without any vegetation, I'm coming here to throw some buckwheat over it. So I spent the last 20 or so minutes kicking the dirt while spreading down the seeds. So I'm trying to get it as flat as possible before the weeds start regrowing. 20th, I planted 16 Choy water spinach here. I'll transplant them as soon as I transplant these guys next week. And today I finished building the cold frame. I added these sides, and here I added some here as well. So it still has these leaks, but I don't think it should matter too much. It should get pretty hot in here regardless.